2024 Georgia was one of the most inconsistent good teams I've ever seen. There were some very high highs. They killed a really good Texas team in Austin and then did it again in the SEC championship game. They beat a really good Tennessee team by 2 touchdowns. They also lost to an Alabama team we later found out was very beatable, and was largely uncompetitive with an Ole Miss team that was also very beatable. Because of the way Georgia's season went last year, it's easy to look at the negatives and say they won't get back to their 2021 or 22 form. And especially with the way the season ended against Notre Dame, it becomes really easy to say that. But I think with the wins we saw Georgia get last year, they clearly showed potential. That with a few roster changes could turn them into a force to be reckoned with. One thing from recent years I think fans are still adjusting to, or need to adjust to, is that these super elite rosters aren't going to win every game by 40 like they were doing in 2019 and 20. So when a team like Georgia beats Kentucky 13-12, Georgia fans should be celebrating. Road wins are hard to get in this conference, even against quote-unquote bad teams. Georgia should celebrate an overtime win over Georgia Tech. Georgia should celebrate a 10-point win over Mississippi State. Really good teams are going to have more close games because with free transfers, guys that leave your roster will not be as easily replaced by quality depth. And then you throw in the fact that not every conference has divisions, and it compounds that. That's going to be true for everyone in this era. Ohio State should be okay with a 4-point win over Nebraska. Texas should be okay with a 3-point win over Vanderbilt. Oregon should be okay with a 3-point win over Boise State. And yeah, you're going to lose games in this era. And when Georgia plays these close games, that shouldn't be used as evidence they've fallen off. But when we see games like the ones they played against a very beatable Ole Miss team, that should be the thing that concerns you. Kirby Smart has lost combined 73-24 in Oxford, and that game last year should have been a game they won, especially if that Kentucky team last year was able to do it. With Carson Beck gone, I'm not sure that they'll improve that much at quarterback. You can tell me he was terrible last year and threw picks, and I won't disagree necessarily, but he also made really good throws and was clutch in certain moments the last 2 years. He wasn't easily rattled in road environments, and he carried the team a lot more than he should have had to last year. Georgia couldn't run the ball the way they wanted to, which is why quarterbacks had to carry the team the way they did. Knowing this, it's hard to judge how well the starting quarterback Stockton will do this year, given that we don't really know how the run game will improve or if it will. If nothing else, Zach Branch and Noah Thomas, the new transfer wide receivers, should drop the ball a lot less than their receivers did last year. That's 2 guys with proven production at this level they brought in that should really help them produce in the pass game, even if Stockton might not be the passing threat people thought Beck was. And as for the stuff about Mike Bobo and how good or bad of an offensive coordinator he might be, I'm just going to ignore that and say that it was mostly team construction problems last year that held them back. So, now to my favorite part of the video, the part where I predict games. How we predict games on this channel is a bit different than the way other channels do it. Each game is going to be given a win probability rounded to the nearest quarter, with 0.5 being games with an expected point spread of 8 or less in either direction. 0.25s and 0.75s being highly probable losses and wins respectively, and 0s and 1s being almost certain losses and wins respectively. So, Georgia opens the season with Marshall, which I have given a 1. There's not a lot of thought needed there. Marshall is a Sun Belt team that lost their head coach to Southern Miss. Georgia should have no issues winning this. Austin Peay is a 1, and then at Tennessee is a 0.75. I am not high on Tennessee this year. Tennessee fans might not like Nico, but the thing they'll have to deal with is that even though Aguilar is experienced, he does not give you the talent ceiling Nico does. Even with Georgia being the more talented team here, Tennessee last year had to rely on their defense to keep them in a lot of games, and likely will have to do that again this year. That entire scheme they run there is predicated on being able to run at a decent amount of yards per carry to get wide receivers on islands. I think Georgia will be able to handle the run game of Tennessee, and at that point, you basically need a Sun Belt quarterback to win you a game single-handedly against basically the most talented team in the country by himself. I don't expect that to happen, but it is still possible, which is why it's a 0.75 even in Knoxville. Alabama in Athens is a 0.5. I know what you're probably saying. Kirby can't beat Bama. Kirby doesn't know how to beat Bama. Shut up, guys. This probability is based on this year's teams and doesn't take the past into consideration because it's just that, the past. I think this game is very winnable and very losable for both teams, and that shouldn't be surprising if you understand that these are basically the two most talented rosters in the game. If you expect Bama to cruise here just because it's Georgia, I'm sorry, but that's just not the kind of analysis I do here. Ty Simpson is pretty unproven, sure, but Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard are ballers. Those DBs for Alabama will be awesome, and one thing to note is that this is Kirby's first time playing against Alabama in Athens. And if you think that's crazy, just think about the fact that Georgia still hasn't played in College Station yet. But I digress. Point is, both teams can have a really good season even if they lose this game, and the team that loses this game, it won't be because they're trash. Kentucky is a .75. Kentucky isn't one of the more talented teams in this conference, and they play a style of football that makes it very difficult to win against these super elite rosters. Everything has to go right for them. And yeah, I can understand and could buy the argument that Kentucky could surprise some people. But even surprising some people, I think Kentucky is likely to lose this one. And side note, I do not believe in Calzada in the slightest. At Auburn. I don't get why this is such a common upset pick. Maybe it's the Auburn fan in me, but I've kind of just resigned myself to the fact that the natural order of things seems to be good things happening to Auburn's rivals and bad things happening to Auburn. Could the upset happen? Sure, but I'm not going to pick it to happen. Not after what this program has put me through. And the only reason that anyone is even picking Auburn to win here is the home field advantage. They might try to talk stuff about the receivers and things like that, but when it boils down to it at the end of the day, you know that this is only because home field advantage, and people saw Auburn win games in 2013 and 2017, and so they pick it to happen every year that Auburn has Georgia and Alabama at home, even though it hasn't happened in forever, and our team has been terrible since then. But people still pick it to happen. There is no substance to these picks. And I know we're supposed to have a talented team this year, but we had one last year and went 5-7. So, to me, this isn't about talent. It's about whether it can overcome the bad coaching we know is going to happen. Auburn's home field advantage hasn't really helped it beat anyone of note besides Texas A&M the past few years. But Georgia is an entirely different beast than that. And we saw what happened 2 years ago. Even as the upset seemingly was happening right in front of our eyes, we all knew Auburn was going to do something to lose that game at the end. I never really felt like Auburn was going to win it the entire time watching that game. Ole Miss in Athens is a .75. These teams that build their roster nearly entirely off the transfer portal are at an inherent disadvantage when it comes to beating these machine programs like Georgia, which is why their loss to Ole Miss last year was so baffling to me. Ole Miss wasn't even that great last year, guys. They just weren't. And with the expected fall off on defense, for me, I don't expect Georgia to lose this. They are the clearly more talented team and have the home field advantage. This is a likely win in my opinion. Florida in Jacksonville is a .5. Florida I respect a lot more because of their quarterback. Ole Miss fans might get on me about Austin Simmons and say I should have given that last game a more favorable grade because of him, but I just think Lagway is not only better, but has a better team around him, and a better coach. Florida was a good team last year, and I expect them to be good this year even if their record might not reflect it. This Florida team is going to have some losses because they play a tough schedule, and they're probably not going to get the respect they deserve because of it. But they'll still be a difficult game for any team. At Mississippi State is a .75. There's not a lot of worries here. Georgia should take care of business in this one. Very close to a 1, but I gave it the .75 because you don't always know Power 4 teams. Texas at home is a .5. It's very similar to Alabama for me. Texas is on that similar level roster-wise, and so either team could win this. It's all about who gets hot at the right time. Texas has a lot to replace at the skill positions, but for me what's most interesting is the quarterback Arch Manning. Manning is an interesting case. He's obviously very talented, but so much of the narrative around him is fans ranking him low on quarterback lists and all that stuff because he hasn't proven anything against good competition. That's fair, he hasn't, but that doesn't mean he can't be a good quarterback. Newsflash. Austin Simmons hasn't proven much against good competition, but no one seems to have a problem hyping him up. People want so badly for Arch Manning to be nothing more than just his last name so they can act like he's overhyped. I've seen more people backlash the Arch Manning hype, or anyone saying Arch Manning might be good, and call him trash and say he's propped up by his last name, than I've seen people actually give praise or hype to Arch Manning. People want him to fail so badly so they can call him a bust, and I just don't see that being the case. Yeah, that was a tangent, but the point I'm making is that Texas will be good once again, and Manning might be better than Ewers, even if that's not really saying a lot. And if that is the case, then this game could be losable for Georgia, and probably will be. Charlotte is a 1, Georgia Tech in Mercedes-Benz Stadium is a 0.5. I respect Brent Key. I respect Georgia Tech. And I respect what they've added to this rivalry to make it actually competitive again. Haynes King is proven at quarterback, very talented, and you know this entire team is going to play hard for 4 quarters and bring an effort that was severely lacking in the Jeff Collins era. Even if they don't measure up roster-wise, Georgia Tech's going to give Georgia a game. So when you add these up, you get an expected record of 9-3. But I'm actually going to override what these probabilities say and go with 10-2 as my official prediction, as I think 10-2 is more likely than 9-3. Either way, people need to get used to more 10-2s being the top teams in these Power 4 conferences, aside from maybe the ACC. The days of there being 3 or 4 12-0 teams and a slew of 11-1s behind them are pretty much over, and I think there's a decent chance Georgia makes it to Atlanta even if they are 10-2. So, that's it for me. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and a subscription. It really helps the channel out. And leave a comment below saying which team in the SEC you want to see next for our preview series.